Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pachelos, and we are super excited for today's guest. I've been trying to set this up for a little bit, and obviously it's more my fault. Like I get busy and I just like forget things sometimes. Like it
I'm the
happens in
same way.
school and my job, it happens at camp, it happens with
Yep.
Beyond. And I think I'm pretty organized, but there's always like something I miss or so I blame myself more on this than anything else. But we are super excited to have her on here because I think she's on to something, something really creative. About a year ago, I was at a Salem State girls hockey game senior night, a women's game. Sorry, we cover girls, I think high school, but women's hockey. And it was awesome. It was really cool. We know Coach Dana there, and you weren't playing, but you were there celebrating the girls, your teammates. You had graduated. You had played for the program. You were captain of the program.
Yep.
And one of the players introduced me to, and you told me about this concept about retired athletes club. And when you told me, and we kind of talked off the air, I walked away and driving home, I was like, God, it's a really good idea, and to kind of see a year later or a little bit in change, to how well you're doing with it and seeing how you're exploring this. It's cool to get you on here today. So, guys, really cool guest, really cool idea. We can't wait for you to hear about it. Without further ado, Retired Athletes Club. I guess we'll call you the CEO. Let's give you the CEO mark
Perfect.
here. Mackenzie Mallett, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, yeah. So and I mean everything I said. We talked a little bit before we hit record here, but I think you have a really cool concept, and I want to kind of like tease it a little bit. I want to just like rewind. So I mentioned, that I met you at Salem State. You were there rooting on, teammates. You had graduated. You were captain of the team, which is, we got to throw that out there. Whenever we have guests on that have that, you got to let people know they have that, right? Um, and you came up with this idea, but a little bit of who you are, tell people who you are, where you're from, and hockey is obviously a passion. You play collegiately. Anybody who plays a collegiate sport, any division is impressive. So let's hear it.
Yeah. So I'm Mackenzie, also go by Mac. So I'm from York, Maine. Went to York High School. Then I went to Burke Academy. It's also in Maine. And then I did a post-grad year at Proctor Academy, up in New Hampshire. And always been an athlete my whole life. Always identified as being an athlete. Hockey is my main sport. Also played lacrosse. Just always been in the sport world. You know what I mean? Like going to my brother's hockey games. Just like a sport family.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew when I was done playing sports, I wanted to give back in some way. So that's kind of where I've landed myself now is doing Retired Athletes Club, giving back to the community, and doing something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah. So Retired Athletes Club, you said it. Um, and walk me through this process a little bit. So you said you identify as an athlete,
Mhm.
you're an athlete your entire life. So you get to your last collegiate game, tears, sadness, a
Yep.
million family members there. I know the vibe there. I was there, so I know it.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Uh, but you leave playing hockey and you graduate. Was this an idea that you had before like your collegiate career ended? Was this something you thought of shortly after? Where was this born? Where did this come from?
So so I had taken a sports psychology class, I think my sophomore year, and absolutely fell in love with it. I knew at some point like sports psych, like athlete mental health, I was going to get involved in that somehow. So, and I've always just loved kind of creating things in apparel, so I always wanted to kind of mesh the two. And then fast forward, I'm a psychology major. I'm obviously learning about mental health. I care about mental health. Um, my senior year rolls around. The whole year, I'm just kind of like have this impending doom of like, what are you going to do when hockey ends? This is all you've done. All of your time's devoted to this. You're going to have all this free time. Kind of having just a crisis my whole last year of hockey. Couldn't enjoy a lot of the end of my hockey career because I was just so clouded with this anxiety of what's going to come next.
Hmm.
Um, and that all kind of came to a head at our last playoff game. We lost. And I obviously all the seniors were all bawling our eyes out, right? But I just completely like broke down and we had like a 7, 8 hour bus ride home from Elmira. And I was with all my teammates. We were just kind of reminiscing, like I say, mourning a piece of ourselves because at the end of the day, it's kind of what it feels like.
Right.
Um, and I realized in that moment, I hadn't really talked to a lot of my teammates about how much this was kind of taking a toll on me. And when I'm looking around and like everyone else kind of crying, I'm like, wow, okay, like this is a relatable kind of struggle, you know what I mean? So, that kind of opened my eyes to like, I'm probably not the only athlete that's felt like this. And you hear older people saying, play as long as you can, like whatever. But it was like a really, really tough transition for me. So hockey ends and I'm like, if I go pick out a sweatshirt, on my sweatshirt's all like my Salem State hockey stuff, which is great. Like, but I was like, wow, like what if I could kind of combined all of my things I'm interested in. I like making stuff, I like clothing, athlete mental health, and this kind of new, issue that I'm realizing is pretty common. Like, why don't I combine all of this and make apparel that kind of brings awareness to it and starts a conversation about it? Like, rather than, transitioning to life after sport, it being this kind of daunting, dreadful thing, maybe making it a little bit more of like a talked about thing. Because I think if I had heard some conversations about it or even someone relating to it, I wouldn't have felt so kind of crazy my last year of hockey.
Mm.
Because I felt like I was like, oh my God, like, how did you not find the internship or the job lineup that you wanted? Nothing, I wasn't able to identify with anything as much as I did being an athlete. Um, and I kind of, I guess, felt like a little bit of shame about it and was embarrassed by it. So I think rather than kind of just suppressing that, I've decided to kind of make a brand of it, and talk about it. So that's kind of what led me here, I guess.
I mean, I love that. I mean, that's God. I mean, you took a problem and you made a solution out of it, right? And you
Yeah,
created something that keeps you involved in something that you're extremely passionate about. That's what this kind of is in a lot of senses.
yeah,
Now, I love it. You know how I feel about it. I've said it to you since we've talked how great of an idea it is. But before I jump further into it and invest hardcore into you here on this podcast, let's talk about the type of hockey player you were. I want to know who we're talking to here a little bit. Captain, obviously, so there you go. Leadership, talent, all kind of comes together. I get it. I get that vibe. Are you a chippy player on the ice? Do you talk trash? Let's hear that side first. Let's hear like the side that maybe people don't know about you. You kind of be sneaky
yep.
at a little bit, or no, maybe you're not that. Maybe you're not that at all.
Well, it's funny. So I didn't really too much, and I always say it's because I think I had a C on my chest that it helped me like maintain a level head. Because I think if I did kind of chirp around and get too chippy, it would get away from me. I think I have a bit of a temper. I would turn into a hothead. So I would always my teammates were always like, "Oh, like you're so chill, you're too nice," and I'm like, yeah, but it's only like it's because I'm a captain. I got to keep it together. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I'm like, I have to
yeah.
set the precedence here. But like in reality, sometimes I want to let loose a little bit. But yeah, I would say obviously leadership. I was super passionate about always setting a good example. Wasn't too much of a chippy player, but I definitely had like some tenacity and would have considered myself a grinder. Um,
Are
I
you on the
will,
PK? Are you on the PK?
yeah, yep.
Yeah, I
I
could see
love the
that.
PK.
Yep. Okay, I could see
Love
that.
the PK.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, I always wanted to be a consistent player. I wasn't like a major flashy goal scorer in my opinion, like my whole career really. So I think just like being focusing on like what I was good at and maintaining consistency, forechecking hard, all like doing like the little things. Because those things you can do every single game, like your effort. I don't have to rely on anything else other than me to come and give 110%. So that's something that I always kind of really aimed towards. Um, but yeah, I guess I was a bit of a chippy
Okay.
player, but
I
like I
just want
said,
to know. I want to
the
know. I
captainship
mean,
that definitely kept me in line, I would say.
I gotta understand the brand. I gotta understand the
Yep.
minds. I
hmm
gotta understand all that. What number were you?
13.
13 is a big number. Was it whole life? 13?
I was 19.
Okay.
And then I went to Proctor Academy and someone else had 19, so I took 13.
That's a God. When someone has your number,
Oh my God.
what?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. But I'm like everything happens for a reason. I have to like find a way to just make it work. And then that number was open for the rest of my career, so that was great.
Yeah, yeah. So we met at a Salem State women's senior night, and afterwards we had chatted, and then we kept in touch a little bit on Instagram early on, and then, I followed you, and you had sent me a sweatshirt, and I wear this a lot. We talked off air. I work with the Boston Glory, the professional ultimate frisbee team, and this year I'm actually their full-time MC. I got the MC gig there, so I'm really excited about that.
Great.
Um, but last year I wore this sweatshirt a lot. I always had like a Beyond t-shirt on or Beyond hat or whatever. But it was always like the game was at like 4 o'clock and it's like late April, early May. So it's like a nice day, but when the sun starts to set, it's cold. And so I'd always bring this sweatshirt with me, and so many people would ask me about it. I'm like, yeah, it's a cool concept. I met her as, she's Salem State captain. Like, I didn't really know you, but I'm just like throwing out everything I did know about you. And
She's the best person I've ever met.
yeah, I threw a few things on Instagram when I was at those games at Hormel Stadium. They got like 1,500 people to 2,000 people at the playoff game that I was at. I mean, they get a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a little bit of free advertisement, but
Oh, 100, yeah, I
cozy
appreciate that.
sweatshirt, love it. Like I even said to you, I was like, I actually just did my laundry. I just folded and brought it down. So I had met you then, and this was kind of just a beginning concept and so on. You're a grinder. You worked hard. We talked off air about this. Where are you at right now with the business a little bit? And I'm gonna sometimes interrupt you and slide in because we did talk, and there are really like hardworking, unbelievable concepts that I want people to also understand that you're putting into this. Because there's just so many spider webs that come off this like Spider-Man, for you. And I want people to see that whole picture. So where are you at with it a little bit right now?
Yeah. Um, so when I thought of the idea, end of my, so was it like spring of my last year hockey, I knew I wanted to like hit the ground running with it and kind of set myself up for the best success I could because I truly believe it's something that can be great and big and relatable and get the attention it deserves. Um, so because of that, I wanted to lay down like a solid foundation.
Yeah.
Because, if I just ran around with it and started doing, X, Y, and Z and didn't have my ducks in a row, I knew it would kind of be a disaster. So because of that, I think I invested a lot of time into like doing the groundwork and the behind the scenes stuff. That took a while. I mentioned to you like making the website. I wanted to learn that process, and because if I want to fix something on the website, I can just go and fix it myself. It
Do
takes
it.
two
Right.
seconds. You know what I mean? And also, I think it's rewarding like that as well. Like knowing that it took me that long and all that stuff. It's I can like look at it and have, I'm pretty proud of myself and have all of that time that I spent be kind of worth it. So the website took a while to make. But now I guess where I'm at, as I mentioned, is kind of the marketing and growing it. So I had said I really want to connect with schools, alumni associations, high schools, colleges, and my goal would be for teams to reach out to me for senior nights. So have their
Very
seniors be
cool.
gifted apparel from Retired Athletes Club. Because like I had said, my senior night was a disaster for me. I was like dreading the whole thing. I was just a mess. And I think if I had had something like this, it would have been a lot smoother for me. So my goal, like I said, would be to connect with teams all around the country. I would love to support athletes through that process of life after sport. So that's where I'm at now, I guess, is just the marketing and like you wearing the sweatshirt around all the time. That's huge. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
So I think just growing it is what I'm obsessed with in the moment.
Yeah, and as you're growing that, you say all that, just some things that we talked off air about that I know people like always like don't want to mention all the hard work and cool things that they do that they put into it, but you're making those sweatshirts. So like
Oh,
when
yes.
someone orders it, so you learned your website, which first of all, let's just go back to that for a second. Learning your website and understanding, hearing you say, I think the most important words that you probably will say on this podcast that people should take from you is if there's something wrong with it, I want to be able to fix it. And I think when you're in business for yourself, that's so important. And I think that is the most important thing is that anything that goes wrong, there's no one you're calling.
Right.
So
Exactly.
you got to know what you're doing. So to hear you say
Yeah.
that right away, just I think work ethic, and I think like, okay, we're 1,000% in here, like all the chips in the middle of the table, and I love that. And so your 4 to 7 business days of delivering is you getting that order and making it,
Yep.
packaging it, shipping it, and getting it there. I mean, that's on top of that, and building the website itself and marketing it, and on top of that, everything else that you're doing for the business that is just like in coaching we cover, and athletes, you're doing so many other things. I
Yep.
mean, there's a lot that you're juggling there, and I probably didn't mention some stuff that you probably throw in there, but talk about that balance and act and running a business, because people don't hear that side of it, the real
Yeah.
grind side of it.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy too is like I was a psychology major. I didn't know anything about business. And I've obviously learned, but wow, is it trial and error? Like
Mhm.
being an entrepreneur the past, almost 2 years now, it's a lot of trial and error. So it is currently a one-woman show, like you said.
No.
So I'm making the sweatshirts and stuff myself. The embroidered hats I get made for me. But you know,
That's okay. You
it's
you got to. You
yeah.
got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've kind of learned it's all about weighing pros and cons and just making your choices based on your goals, I guess. So, um, if you don't have a ton of money to start a business, you have to, cut costs in some way, shape, or form. For me, that was all right. I guess I'm going to make the sweatshirts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd used a heat press before and a Cricut machine, and I wasn't too hard, so I was like, all right, we'll see how this goes. Um, and I actually kind of like the process. It's pretty, I mean, it's definitely tedious.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's going to be my goal forever. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, no, it's definitely kind of adds to the element, I guess, of it being really like a self-made brand. Is like I'm literally making the sweatshirts myself. So,
Yeah.
um, it's definitely tiring, but like I said, I think running a business, you have to pick and choose what you're going to spend on, what you're going to save, and it's just kind of constant decision making with that. So, yeah.
What now? You obviously been in business for yourself. I mean, I do it with this. Question that I have for you is, what is probably what you've learned the most about yourself in a year? Like here you are, like, yeah, like spinning many webs here. But with that being said, like where do you feel like, man, I'm actually exceeded maybe expectations in this area?
I would say probably my patience in one
Yeah.
way. I never considered myself a patient person, like ever, my whole life. And then this has taught me patience to like an entire new level because
Hmm.
it takes just so much time. Every single thing, like you think it's gonna, even still, I'm like, oh, like I want to do this, I'll have it done in this time frame. I never do. Like things just take time, and there's reasons for that, obviously. I mean, even getting on this podcast, like we said, it took us what, a year?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like life happens, you have to juggle other things. So I would say how patient I've been with it. And then also just kind of remaining, I don't know if confidence is a word, I guess so, like confident and just sure of it. I think I've always just been very sure that this is gonna eventually just kind of do well and like it's a good idea. And I've been very solid in that belief. So, when you send emails to people and you don't hear back or you hear no's or you tell it to people and it doesn't really connect with them. I don't really take too much offense to that or anything. So I would say
Yeah.
kind of my belief in what I'm doing, just pretty solid in it, I would say. I think that also just comes from if you're an entrepreneur, you have to believe in what you're doing, right? Like
Yeah.
you are the person to kind of push that message forward. So I would say, yeah, my patience and I guess my confidence. I guess I didn't realize how strong those two things need to be in order to start a business, but I learned.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's patience is key to anything. Like
Oh
anything
my
you're
God, yeah.
successful in life, you got to be patient. And yeah, sometimes even though you're working and you're one of one, having to depend on other people or other things to get things to you, or for things to get back, for people to get back to you, that's a struggle. Like I struggle with that with this sometimes,
Yeah.
of like, man, like, like you don't want to be a haunt or a pest, but you also are
Right.
kind of like, man, I'm trying to hustle too. I'm trying to
Totally.
do my thing too, So
Yeah.
patience is perfect because you're always going to run into stuff like that.
Yep.
Um, Now let's go back to what you talked about, and where I think is this is a brilliant idea. You've reached out to high schools, that whole like I could see this. Like we cover a lot of high school sports, and senior nights is a big night that we do. I could see like this like being like a thing, like and the videography that's out there now, and people with cameras, and how it's received or how it's given, like you could have such cool content for your brand. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
think what you're thinking is very smart, and I think you're going to have a lot of success once you kind of get into it and figure it out. How'd you come up with that idea? I mean, you say you've never really gone to school for business, but it's a great business idea.
I know. I think like I said, I kind of had an epiphany, I guess, when I was wearing my college sweatshirts. And I was, I guess, being a bit dramatic, but like I'd put on my sweatshirt and I'd be like, I'm not even on the team anymore. Like I'm just washed up. And then I was
Yeah.
like, that could be something. I was like, wait a minute, what if I made like that apparel? Um,
Yeah.
so I guess that was, and then obviously like telling to my friends like, hey, like I think I have like a really good idea, and like they're like, yeah, like that would be huge. Um, and like I said, I've always just kind of loved sweatshirts and stuff, and I just saw an opportunity to just kind of combine everything that I enjoy and I'm also good at in this idea.
Yeah.
Um, and I also I didn't get to mention, but I donate a percentage of each sale to the Hidden Opponent. Have you? I'm not sure if you've heard of the Hidden Opponent.
No.
So, they're a nonprofit for basically mental health awareness in student athletes. So it's by Victoria Garrick. She's the founder, but she does a lot with like sports psychology and athlete mental health. And they'll do like workshops. They go to like colleges and I think high schools as well. Um, so I donate a percentage of each sale to them. So I knew I always wanted to kind of give back to the athletic community. I just didn't know how. And then, like I said, this was just kind of like my perfect way of doing that. So yeah, the Hidden Opponent, definitely check them out. Also have had them linked on my website as well.
God, okay.
Yeah.
And look at this. And on top of all that hustle, you're giving back that hustle, some of that hustle to something really great. So, that's all. I mean, wow. I am impressed. Now, I'm wearing a year older version here. I see, like,
That's an early edition.
right here. This is like vintage right here. This will be
That is.
vintage one day. When you're big, I'm gonna be like, I had an original. I had an original. Uh, but I love like I look at you with that sweatshirt on right now, and like every year I go to the Cape with my high school friends. We all played high school football together.
Mhm.
I could see us we're like all like being at the beach on like a cool day or going out on a cool night and having that hoodie on. I, and I could see that all over the Cape. Like, and I'm that just I love that color and just, but I also love the design there where like the circle, like when
Yep.
you're thinking of that stuff. I mean, I know some of your stuff looks different. Like, how are you figuring out the design aspect of things?
So this sweatshirt that I'm wearing is like the original. So this is like my actual logo. Um,
Okay.
so I don't honestly I don't even know how I really thought of the logo. Like I feel like I just like blacked out and I was just like it was like really quick. I don't even really
Yeah.
remember like debating it or having that many versions of it. Like I just knew I loved like the dead smiley face. You can see it in the logo. I knew I wanted to have that aspect to it. And then the still the player is like my motto. I wanted to have that in the main logo as well. So I obviously have this like original style, but I also realized, okay, retired athletes could be like a teenager to an 80-year-old. So I wanted to have some like more mature styles or like muted styles, more of like a classic-y vintage look. So that's the style that you're wearing.
Yeah.
I call that the vintage hoodie.
Hey, I
Kind
love
of like
it.
a more relaxed. If the dead smiley face isn't for everybody, I guess I get that.
Yeah.
So that's why I have that line, and then I want to kind of expand in the future, and
Yeah.
have more lines coming.
Yeah, and I love your hats too. I mean, you mentioned your hats. I mean, yeah, I think God, I think there's so much you can do with that. And I think high school and collegiate sports, we cover it like the senior night videos we cover are always dramatic in a sense. Like
Mhm.
even championship games. Like we just covered a team, a documentary all season long, Malden Catholic High School basketball, going for their fourth state championship, and we put four videos together, four different games we covered. We did specials on three of their players.
Mhm.
This team was legit. They went all the way and they lost in the final, and
Oh,
they kind of got beat up in the final a little bit, and I never saw that coming.
yep.
And I think of like those kids, and they would all like after like a senior night or a game or like they would wear this. You could get so many people to wear this thing. Yeah, like I'm around this a lot. Like I just see it,
Yeah.
and you
That's so
know,
good to hear.
yeah, and I mean that, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to, get you on here today because our audience, like hearing this, is just gonna be like, wait, what's this? And look it up. Where can we find it? Where on you social media? Like where? Tell people where they can find you a
S-
little bit.
so Retired Athletes Club is my Instagram.
Hmm.
It's my TikTok as well. And then retiredathletesclub.org um is my website.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, we're kind of in March, almost in April. We're creeping towards April, being the nicer spring weather here coming. What's a big goal for you going into 2025? By like the end of 2025, is there a spot that you hope you are somewhere? I'm not saying like tell me what your business. I don't mean it like that, but like, is there a goal? Is there something that you're trying to achieve or get at by the end of the year that means a lot to you?
So I kind of briefly just mentioned this. I do have some more, I guess, additions or lines that I'm going to be launching.
Okay.
So launching those, I don't want to say yet what they are,
Okay.
but expanding my apparel is a major goal of mine. Not by the end of 2025. Definitely don't see this happening. Like I said, things take forever in business, I've learned.
Yeah.
I eventually want to have workout clothes. So that was also one of my like first ideas when I thought of this was like, oh, that'd be cool to wear something like to the gym that says like I'm a retired athlete, whatever. So that's like I guess more of a long-term goal, but for the next few months heading into summer, there's a line I definitely want to launch that I'm
Let's
very
go. Okay, that's
it'll be good
great.
timing for summer. That'll be my hint.
Well, I mean, I look at your sweatshirt, like God, that's like I see that. I could see like that type of weather and atmosphere and people being like, oh, it's gonna be like kind of a cool night along the water. Let me throw on the like, yeah, like I see it. Like, is there a favorite color of yours? Like you're wearing that? Is that like your
Yeah.
go-to? Is that kind of like the one you like the most?
Well, it's funny you mentioned like the colors because that was like when I first started, I was so nitpicky about finding the right sweatshirts because so I could have just so many colors because that's what I wanted. I wanted to make sure everybody could find a style and a color that they like. And my friends kind of just like thought I was crazy because I'd be like, that's not the right shade of blue or something. But I would say this is definitely one of my favorite ones. It's also like depending on the sweatshirt style. So in your sweatshirt, I like that color, the black, the
Yeah.
maroon I really like.
Yeah.
And then this style, this Carolina blue is 100% my favorite one. It's just such a good pop of color. I wear it and I get compliments on it like all the time. People love the color. They're just like drawn to it. Um,
Yeah.
so this color is definitely a top favorite for mine.
I can see that. I mean, baby blues, like, I joke, we cover a lot of Medford High School. I teach in Medford. I'm a fifth grade teacher there. And, I'm involved with a lot of their high school sports. We're in a lot of coverage with like all their teams, really. And they're navy blue. And some of their teams and their jerseys are flirting with the baby blue idea a little bit.
Mhm.
And I know it ruffles like certain like old school Medford people's feathers when I mention the baby blue, especially on this podcast and especially when I put it on Instagram. And I love it. I kind of love getting it going a little bit, if I'm being honest, because then I'll get so many DMs in my store from my stories being like, "That's ridiculous. Method should be navy, blah blah blah." And some people are like, "A baby blue looks so much better," which I agree. Baby blue would look so much better, but I
Yeah.
know I'm going to hear from people on it. But it is. It's just a color that I think is just it's an extremely neutral color. Anybody looks good in wearing it.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it's comfortable looking. Yeah, like that and white sweatshirts. I mean, white sweatshirts get dirty, but
Yeah.
like, God, they're like, yeah, they just look
Mhm.
sharper,
Yeah. 100%.
Um, Now, the last thing I'll ask you, and I ask a lot of my guests this and in getting to know my guests. Actually, before I ask you that, let me ask you one more question. Playing hockey, what was like a go-to song for you? You putting the pods on, you putting the headphones on. What type of music do you listen to before like games?
Oh God. Honestly, a little bit of everything. Um, I guess at the end of the day, just like any like EDM, kind
Okay.
of like Avicii, Alesso, just like some classic EDM hits I really like. But I also like rap. I mean, I'll listen to some country. It was funny. Like I always at some point in my college career, I always say that I was getting a little bit like too hyped before my games. Like there's like a window of like getting yourself amped up and then you're in
Yeah.
that perfect sweet spot and then you go too far. So sometimes I feel like I would like have like this pregame ritual and I would have to do X, Y, and Z and I was super like OCD about it and then I was like, you know what? I think I'm doing too much. So
Yeah.
my last year I really started to just kind of chill out and listen to like some chill music before I played, throw on some country. But I guess at the end of the day, if I'm gonna play a game, electronic EDM music is
That's
definitely my
so
way.
interesting because I asked this question also a lot too, and I never heard EDM until probably a month ago. I had a hockey team on, and one of
It's
the
because hockey
captains said
players,
it. Yeah, and so I'm
hockey
like,
players
damn, is
love
this a
EDM.
hockey thing now? Like, okay.
Yeah.
So to hear that, that's just that made me laugh. I was like, wow, the second hockey player to say that.
Yep.
And I don't. Hockey's the one sport, no offense. Hockey's the one sport I don't have a lot of athletes that come on, and I don't know what it is, unless it's a team that we like specifically cover. A
Mhm.
lot of like we hockey's a hard sport to cover from a videography aspect because in a high school world, depending on what rink you're at, like some rinks, there's like nowhere to stand.
Oh,
And
totally.
then
Yeah, yeah.
some rinks, like the glass is all chipped up and
Yep.
stained. And so from a camera, it's like, unless you have like a really expensive lens that can fight through all that, which
Yep.
we kind of sort of do, but not really.
Mhm.
Some rinks can be really hard. So we don't take as many hockey gigs, not because I mean hockey's my favorite sport. Hot playoff hockey is better
Yeah.
than any playoffs. I don't care what anyone says. Like I played hockey my whole life, like, but it is hard to shoot from what we do anyways,
Yeah.
depending on the rink you're at, you know.
Oh,
When you're
I that
covering a
definitely
playoff game somewhere nice, it's different, but
right.
like, you know,
And there sometimes like you have to travel to the rink, like a home team for some teams they have to travel like 40 minutes. So
right.
yeah.
Exactly. And it's just everything's a little further and
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just something about it. But okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
But the last question that I'll ask you, and I ask a lot of guests that come on here, and you took an idea. I mean, I'm going to be a little long-winded here for a second. Um, the I spoke at a college recently, and I got asked questions or whatever, and one of the questions I got asked was just like, "What would be your advice to someone who like graduates like us and just wants to start an idea?" So I'm just thinking same time window. This is why I'm kind of bringing this up.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, I was like, honestly, just like no one knows you better than you. If you have an idea, you need to say to yourself, what do I have to do to make this grow? Am I capable of doing it? Where do I have to educate myself in doing it? You know yourself better than you. Like, if you know you can answer every single one of those questions and know confidently that that answer is what you're going to do or willing to do,
Yeah.
go for it. Like, bet on you. And like, that's what I did with this podcast. Like people laughed about this and people thought this was a silly idea. I was a high school football coach for 15 years. I coached at a school that recruited kids from a lot of different places and using video and especially when I became a head coach, like I made our Instagram account into something because I knew that's what was going to get kids from different towns to be interested in coming to play for our program when they're seeing touchdowns and seeing
Yep.
big hits and seeing a big crowd and it's different when you knowing it versus seeing it and
Totally.
so when I stopped coaching and had my children I was like man there's something here with this and I started off just being like a conversation like this and now we've turned into just like videography. We would cover a state championship in a football team that we covered. They were undefeated and one state championship. We covered a high school basketball team that just lost in a state championship. Did a documentary with them. Like it's not like we just cover the best teams. These are programs that we have been covering and
Yep.
they're growing and you see the growth and you see how much better they get. And it's a business. It's cool. And I look at your idea and I see your idea and it's the same exact thing. Like you have built something here that I think is just just getting going,
Yep.
just getting going. And you have some solid ideas, and I think there's going to be a lot of schools and a lot of programs that are going to be interested in working with you guys. But what would be your advice to somebody who has an idea, who wants to grow something, who is maybe afraid to take that step forward in doing it? I mean, you're committed to this. You are all in. This is your 9 to 5. This is your 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 day a year thing. Like, what's your advice to people that want to take that step or are close to taking that step, but are kind of maybe a little hesitant to do it?
Yeah, I think you said it great with like knowing yourself. Like you
Hmm.
know yourself better than anybody. So I think that is a huge component with it. I also think, realizing that you're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifices potentially is huge and
Hmm.
just fully dive into it and it just kind of be almost like obsessed with it. Um, you're gonna like it's like your baby, you know what I mean? Like you're starting this business, whatever this idea that you have, like you have to care for it and it's gonna be your thing. So I think knowing yourself, researching the market or whatever it is that you're gonna do, like fully diving into it, doing all the research that you can, kind of being an expert in it and kind of just learning like your craft, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, obviously depends on what direction you're going in, but I think at least for me, when I decided, okay, I'm going into, apparel, now I have to learn about apparel. Now I have to learn how
Hmm.
to make a sweatshirt. Now I have to learn how to use heat press. You know what I'm saying? So I think really, making the sacrifice, the time commitment, and fully like diving into it, and once again realizing that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen next week. It's probably not
Right.
going to happen next year or the year after that. You know what I mean? So, how long it takes, and that's a good thing. Because, like I said, I think a lot of people will have these great business ideas, but they go too fast with it in the sense of trying to make money or trying to, you know what I mean? They just make sales. And I think if you do that, then you're going to burn out and you're not going to you don't have a plan, that those things don't usually go well. But I think if you hit the ground running in the sense of like your investment and like you're working hard in that sense, I
Hmm.
think, put all your eggs on your in one basket and bet on yourself in that regard, in terms of like your dedication, but maybe, financially and all that stuff, don't fully dive all the way in just yet, but because it's
Yeah.
going to take time.
Yeah, it does, and it's great. You see the stories of people out there that like start small like this or start small
Mhm.
like us, and they blow it up into something, and it's a mix of everything, skill and precision and luck, like all of it,
Yep.
right? Like it all kind of mixes together and creates that formula. But none of it happens unless you work really hard, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where it all starts and roots from, no matter what.
Mhm.
And I think your advice is great. I think God, it's scary like it is when you invest so much time into something and you want
Sure.
something to work and you feel like it. You're working nonstop a million miles an hour, but that's not how everybody else works too, right?
Yeah.
So you have to learn that patience, and you mentioned that patience is it's important. It really is. Well, listen, we're excited to see kind of, what you have in store for the summer. We'll be in touch. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that I can most certainly we can help you or at least get you in the door of places to kind of pitch yourself and do your thing. But I think you are really onto something. I think you have a great idea here, and most importantly, it's fun watching people to begin to execute that stuff. So
Yeah.
it'll be fun to kind of watch the journey and follow you guys on social media. So I appreciate you coming on here today, and yeah, having some fun with us here.
Of course. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I do want to mention, for all your followers or friends, family, whatever, I made a discount code to use at checkout. So
Okay.
it's Beyond Pod, I think. I have to double check and I'll have to have you put that in the caption or something.
Okay.
But for your followers or podcast followers, anybody listening, Beyond Pod, you can apply that at checkout if you want to get some stuff for a discount.
Okay, that sounds awesome. We'll put that in our story. We'll put that out there for you. And I'm telling you guys, like this is an extremely comfortable sweatshirt. It's a year old. I wear it all the time. Like I was just saying, I said earlier, I had it in the laundry. I did my laundry. I folded it. I went up and got it before the podcast because I'm like, I wear this all the time. So it's comfortable. I am this is my testimonial and it's not planned here. I mean it. It really is. So that's cool. We'll definitely post that for you. That'll be a lot of fun.
Sweet.
But thank you. I think you're onto something great and yeah, full speed ahead. This is great. So guys, we just finished our documentary with Malden Catholic. We are going to be starting something up with Medford High Baseball very soon. We're going to be there Saturday, first scrimmage, checking out the squad, doing a little docky with them. So we're going to be busy. We got some fun things planned for the spring. But thank you for your time, Mackenzie. We loved having you on here. I'm your host, Anthony Petralis. Till next time.